car crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
Glad to have you with us on The Attorneys. I'm Art Franklin, your host. You know, educating you on things that affect your life is something that we take very seriously, and there are so many ways that we can do that. Today, we're talking about empowering women. One of the ways we're going to do that is talking to the author of this book, Edie Hand. You're going to meet her in just a few moments, but first, I want to get over to Carter Clay from Hollis, Wright. Good to see you, Carter.
Good to see you, Art. How are you doing?
Doing great.
I'm excited about tonight's show. It's a little bit of a different perspective on a topic that we've covered from the legal side of things in the past, but not from this perspective. So about 42% of women out there believe at some point during their life they were the subject of gender discrimination. And of course, we've had shows involving sexual harassment in the workplace, some form of discrimination if you're in a protected class, which gender is a protected class. And we've talked about those things from a legal perspective in terms of understanding what your rights are in terms of bringing a lawsuit against an employer or somebody who discriminated against you. Mm-hmm. But what oftentimes is lost in the discussion is there's a whole other side of the equation, and that equation is the emotional toll and the mental side of the situation that women are enduring when they undergo or are subjected to that type of discrimination and harassment. And that's really what we're going to focus in on tonight and tap into. And I'm super excited that we've got Edie Hand here with us. She's an accomplished author of this great book that she's going to talk to us about. Edie, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Clay. I appreciate you and Art both inviting me to be here.
Well, you're welcome. So tell us a little bit about your background and what, I guess, inspired you to write the book. And do you have a personal story behind this that led you to ultimately write this book?
Well, that's three good questions.
Okay. Well, you've got the floor.
Okay. Well, I am an international author, and I owned an advertising agency in my younger years for over 30 years. And I'm a mom. My only son is an actor in Los Angeles and been there over 20 years. So I have been versed in branding and listening to women's needs. As women, we are the top buyers that is known well statistically. You know, my personal story that led me to want to do this is I lost all three of my brothers young. Car accidents, tragic, 19 years old, 23 years old, and then one to a tragic health situation for a long period that died at 42. So that endured me as a young woman, just getting out of college, growing up, losing all my family. My mother died young, my father died fairly young, and I learned, and my very special grandmother taught me about grit. And she used that as a metaphor with a pearl. And that inspired me when she says, you know, it only takes a speck of grit to form a beautiful pearl inside of an oyster shell. You got grit, girl. You come from it. And little did I know that that wisdom would make a difference for me as I grew older and wanted to have a better way of life and to find tools to get through my life situations. And the more I heard other women's stories, I thought, I need to share their stories.
Yeah, so the name of your book is Women of True Grit. And as I understand it, grit is an acronym that stands for what?
Great resilience is transformative.
Okay. Now, is that what you came up with for the acronym GRIT, or does that also come from, I guess, your grandmother?
No, that is something I came up with. Okay. But, you know, being an old advertiser, you know, that was one of my specialties was the hooks. But, you know, it is so true today, as I see in our culture, that from our young children, our students, I mean, I have a niece that's 8 years old that tells me she is a girl of true grit, right. Is that we need each other. I see that firms like yours that care about the community, and we as women in our positions, we could not be where we are without you. Yeah. We all need each other.
So when did you write the book? How long has it been out?
The book just came out this past March. Okay. It's new, but I had written 2 other books. I wrote the very first book 20 years ago. We launched it in Washington at the Women's Memorial, and Brigadier General Vaughn, she was up in her 80s, and she could still kick your ass and take your name. She was a strong woman. And so I loved that I met these type of women that shared their stories of what led them to get through their hard situations in life to turn them into beautiful situations.
And is that sort of a brief summary of what the book is about? Are you incorporating a lot of stories of other women, trials and tribulations that they've gone through, kind of incorporating those stories into your book and then expanding upon those in terms of how you can deal with situations?
Exactly, and I picked different colors of the pearls to give different, like leadership, and you're in the leadership field, is Mr. Smith, that is the owner of FedEx, hired me to do a book for him of Women of True Grit. For I did stories of over 17 of his leaders around the world that were women of true grit, and that had never been done before, and he didn't. And I love this, in USA Today quoted him, and he said, well, why in the world would you pick Edie Hand? You could get anybody in the world. And he said, well, I didn't pick her, she picked me. So someone has to become a leader and an advocate for yourself or for the cause.
And just listening to you, you can tell you are a woman of true grit. I'm just looking through the book here, and there are names that a lot of people will recognize. I see Bobby Knight, who's the president of Miles College, and C.C. Winans and Bishop. Were there challenges that all of the women that you chose for this book, the Women of True Grit, that they had similarities? Were there challenges that they had in common?
Yes, that's a good question, Art. They did. The things that I found was that each of these women, from Bobby Knight to any other woman in the book, they had great resilience. Like Bobby, she said, my mother told me when I was a young girl that I need to get a good education, not depend on a man to take care of me. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it wasn't putting a male down, it was just wanting her to be sufficient and that she could count on herself. And so, in the same way with Ann Bishop, you know, and her husband's a professor of law at Sanford, and she taught kids and was a superintendent and made a difference for young people. Hers was the same. She went through cancer. Her personal story of overcoming cancer and finding a deeper grit within her to do what she needed to do to get through it. And like myself, I am a 4-time survivor of cancer, and I think I never thought I was dying. I always thought they'd take care of me. Yeah. And I think it became a mental mindset with any type of field that you're in. C.C. Winans, oh my gosh, the song she wrote of I Believe. Just being around her, you know that she is inspired with her walk in faith, but her walk in community, in the country, and how healing music is. Yeah.
All right, I know we got to go to a commercial break, but when we come back, I want to dive into some of the tips and advice that Edie has for women out there who are confronting these types of difficulties and challenges in their life and how best they can overcome it. So that's what we'll talk about on the next segment.
All right, we certainly get to that. So we are talking to Edie Hand, the author of this book, Women of True Grit, as we continue on the attorneys. And also want to remind you right now to go ahead and scan that QR code on the television set that will get you to Hollis, Wright. You can also follow us on all the social media channels, on Twitter, which is now X, on Facebook and Instagram as well. And we're going to give you a number to call that you can reach an attorney right now who can talk with you, confidential, it's free. That's 1-844-LAW-TALK. We're taking a break. We'll continue with this conversation with the author of this book, True Grit, when we come back.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright, a personal injury law firm, and thank you for watching The Attorneys. We hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free and off air. So if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury topics, call, email, or text us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or go to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us button. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and watching The Attorneys.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show in 2011, my goal was to do what our firm does best. Help people answer questions related to real-world legal issues they have in their lives in a way that's not intimidating to talk with a lawyer. If the issue is important to you, it's equally important to us, and we're ready to talk with you at no cost.
Yeah, oftentimes people are confronting various legal issues in their lives that really run the gamut of a lot of different legal practice areas, such as bankruptcy, criminal law, civil law, such as personal injury, divorces, domestic relations. And to be able to have a show once a week that covers those practice areas and answers people's questions in those areas, that's really the main objective of the show.
We use the resources of the many lawyers at our law firm to create a plan that has a lasting impact for each person that calls or texts. And we also give back to the community at the same time. We are here to serve you, the viewer, each week on The Attorneys.
Did you know we have nearly 100 5-star reviews on Google? That's because our clients like the work we do. If you've been injured in an accident, we are here to help. Give us a call for a free consultation. At Hollis Wright, your result matters.
I want to welcome you back to The Attorneys as we're speaking with the author of Women of True Grit, Edie Hand. And women face so many different things, Carter. We talked about workplace, gender in the workplace. There's so many things that they face that this book really tried to address.
Yeah, not only gender discrimination or sexual harassment in the workplace, but even on the home life.
That's right.
Victims of sexual abuse, all kinds of emotional abuse, things that go on in a household that really victimize women and can negatively impact their self-confidence and their self-esteem and those types of things. So let's jump right in there. What are some of the tips or what advice would you give women that have been victimized either in the workplace or in a home life type setting by a boyfriend or a spouse in terms of what they should do to help their self-confidence, help their self-esteem?
Well, that is so important to know. I've been working with women for many years, and we came up with an idea of Grit 101 to help women with life situations. So I say this, in abusive situations, I tell one in the book of the story of a woman that was kidnapped, her and her 2 children. And they were all abused sexually, in other ways. And I remember her, I said, how in the world did you get through that? And she said, I had to die before I could live. So she took an overdose, got it so that she could get out of that house situation. And another family member saw something was bad off, and so it helped her. I think thinking about a whole situation with your children, and we here in Alabama have the Women's Foundation, which is an organization that is available where that you can get a certain amount of free help, just like what you give information from your call-in lines to help. If someone needs help, how can they get money to be able to afford an attorney? And you need your attorney for so many different things as women. I tell them all the time, even to plan your business life, different things. You don't realize sometimes you just can't afford not to have it. So that through the Women's Foundation, they help them to find funds, or even some of the women that perhaps think they can't get out of a situation because of finances, we say there are scholarships for women just like you that can go to a junior college, an online course, or if you don't have a computer, we'll find you one.
Right.
There are people, women and men, that'll give you a hand up.
Yeah, and Art, I think it's important now to bring up that, of course, our firm doesn't handle domestic relations and family law matters, but that is an entire body of legal practice out there with lots of attorneys in Alabama that handle those types of cases. And there's a concept called protection from abuse. It's called PFA, and basically it's a restraining order that individuals in a home life type setting, whether it be a child or a woman, if they're victims of some type of abuse on the home front, one of the things that a lawyer can do is they can consider all of the facts, and they can actually petition or file a motion with the court to enter what's called a PFA, or protection from abuse, which basically we're going to separate the woman or the children from this individual who we find that there's at least some level of evidence that he's engaging in that type of abusive conduct. So that's really the legal side of it. But as Edie is tapping into, there's so much more beyond just getting that initial layer of protection because of the person's self-confidence and self-esteem issues that they may have.
That's why it's important for women to understand that they need a firm like Hollis, Wright.
That's right.
Because of some of the things that they go through. And you talk about some of these many stories in your book. What are some of the lessons learned that some of these women share in your book, that lessons that they can give to other women?
Well, the lessons that I've seen that they said is becoming that you feel worthy enough. And that comes from a mental, if you've been kicked around a lot at work or in your personal life or in one of those extreme situations, I said, the important thing is that you can feel worthy of yourself. Self-talk, we teach that it is, and if there's a counselor or a friend or someone at a church that you can go to and say, I need help. So we teach the basics of that. And I think that's very important for each woman to know that they value and they don't feel alone. I've heard so many women at events we've had say, oh wow, this was good for me to hear if someone had a disability, and realize that there's somebody out there that would teach me how to get a job if I even had a disability. And I don't feel alone anymore. So I think that's part of it.
One of the topics that I wanted to cover with you is what are the pearls of wisdom? I know you made the pearl reference earlier in the show, but what are the pearls of wisdom?
Well, the pearls of wisdom came from my grandmother Alice. And as a young girl, she taught me, this was something she said to me, really a great pearl of wisdom is, in life there's a lot of rides. She called me Edith. Now Edith, you're gonna get on one of those rides and sometimes you're gonna fall in an old mud hole and you're gonna have to get up and wash yourself off.
Yeah.
And then she'd say, then you're gonna get to a curve in life that you don't think you can get around, but you can. And always remember there's another ride. And what I remembered was I love this saying too, from Helen Keller in Northwest Alabama, the blind deaf mute, that said, when one door of happiness closes, another opens. But if we stare too long at the one that's closed, we'll miss the one that's open. And I think that the pearls of wisdom come from that of someone that has mentored you in life. It could be your grandmother, it could be your mother, it could be your teacher, It could be your attorney, it could be anyone that cares enough about you. And so the pearls of wisdom, I put together different colors, like white for purity, faith, starting over, what that is like. I'll give you an example of then starting over was one of the ladies' stories in the book is the CEO of the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, Dr. Kimberly Robinson. She was a engineer student, and she was bullied and thought she was going to have another career, but she'd seen an astronaut come to her school and said, anybody can be one if you really want it. So she had to dig deep to find resilience to go to that class every day when her professor said, only men can be in this class. You're not going to be an engineer.
Yeah. So
guess what? She's an engineer.
So it really sounds like a lot of these concepts are helping people find some level of positive aspects in a very difficult situation and having them move in a more positive direction.
Finding those tools gives you inspiration and hope to have a better tomorrow.
Yeah.
Great pearls that you've already given us. All right, we're going to take a break here. I want to remind you, though, you can get in contact with an attorney at Hollis, Wright. If you've got a question, something that you want to know, you can get a free, confidential call by calling 1-844-LAW TALK. They're waiting right now to hear from you. Go ahead and make that call. We're going to wrap up with Edie Hand in just a few. Stay with us. The attorneys will be right back.
Thank you for watching The Attorneys each Sunday night, where we come to your living room to provide free legal advice in a confidential, off-air setting. Unfortunately, with the number of calls, texts, and emails that come in during the show, we can't always get to everything. But know this, Hollis Wright is open all week long. You call us at 844-LAW TALK and we're going to answer your question for free. Thank you for watching The Attorneys, and we look forward to seeing you and talking to you soon. The firm's motto is "Your result matters," and we mean that sincerely. Hollis Wright handles cases every day for those at their lowest point, and will do whatever it takes to get the result you deserve. At Hollis Wright, your result matters.
And welcome back to The Attorneys. One researcher found that 70% of women like to learn from other women, and that we're learning from a great woman now as we continue on with talking with Edie Hand, the author of the book, Women of True Grit. Really like that.
Yeah, one of the topics that I think is so important and I want to make sure that we address is that I think there are probably a lot of women out there that are in a marriage, they have young children, the woman does not work outside the home. They rely upon the husband or the father to generate all of the income for the family, but the relationship between the man and the woman is a disaster. And the woman is struggling with the issue of, do I hang in there? Do I stay in the relationship, which may be abusive? Do I do it for the sake of our children? If I leave, I don't have the financial wherewithal to provide for myself. What advice do you have for women that are out there that may be in that situation?
Well, one of the things that, I'm not a counselor of that area, but what we do suggest is that if you go to your church counselor, that a lot of them can refer you to where you need to go and what you do. And I think books like this that we've got, that if you're reading about what other people do, but that is a very personal decision that they need to think about safety first. And I think I've seen a lot of women that have been so abused that they couldn't get up and go. And I learned this from one of the ladies in the story that said, Edie, we have centers here in Birmingham that are available to help women in her situation. So if you're out there and you need help, you could come to my website at the womenoftruegrit.org and email me. Through the women's groups that I know, we will find someone to help you and give you the right information so that you make better choices. And that's what this is about, is if you listen to someone and you really help them to make a better choice.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that you would also recommend that if you're in a marriage, go to a marriage counselor, try and bring the spouse with you. I mean, reconciliation is probably, to the extent that it can be done, is in the best interest of everybody if you can resolve the issues that you're confronting. Sometimes they're not resolvable, and that's why we have divorces and legal separation, but at least make the effort, go through the process to see if the issue can be resolved.
And if you don't have a lot of money, your church is one of the best places, and there are certain centers that can but we try to connect people. I take pride in relationships. I've spent my life building healthy relationships, and I think that's part of this, is that if you build healthy enough relationships, there is somebody that's going to help you. Or if I need legal help now for what I need in a different field, I know I could call you, and that's what we're doing.
Let me ask this. Through your research and all of your experience and over the years, how are we doing presently, especially in relationship to how we were doing maybe 10 or 20 years ago, in terms of the working environment for women? Are we doing better in terms of preventing or reducing sexual harassment and discrimination? Are you finding that women are being promoted more quickly and efficiently as perhaps they should have been maybe 20 years ago? Sort of where are we in that regard?
Yeah, I can tell you 30 years ago, they didn't really want me in town having an advertising agency. It was male dominated. But some of the best things I did were men that believed in me. And I think that today is the same way. It is our body language and it is our confidence that when that comes across, I have not had any problems in the workforce. I'd say 20 years ago, it was different, a different kind of competitiveness. Today, there's a different level of respect. So I think we've come a long way in 20 years, and there are many women that are leading companies that work with men every day. Yeah. And I think that it is that attitude, and is who we are. We like who we are, and if I treat you nice, you're going to treat me nice.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right. Mutual respect for each other.
Mutual respect.
Right. Edie, you said something in this book. I want to read this from your book because I thought it was really important. You said, remember, you too can turn hard things into beautiful situations. I think that's powerful. But it says, these women warriors of true grit know how to slay the demons that block their path. powerful. Tell me about that.
Well, that is thank you. I come up with the pearls on, sword up. I have a sword. And I tell you a quick story is that the sword, one night I didn't think I mattered anymore. We've all been in dark places. And I'd lost a lot of my family, and I thought, and someone had betrayed me in a situation for a lot of money. And I thought, I'm just going to lay down and be like the Notebook, and I'm going to go to sleep. I'm not going to wake up. And I looked over, and my phone was beeping. And it was from a young attorney, a female, that had saw me at a luncheon and said, something's off with you, but God didn't let me rest. I wanted to call you and have you to listen to Girls with Swords. Well, I looked over my corner, and I had found a sword that night when I was cleaning out. That is a God wink to me. And it said, you must, at night the demons come for us, come for our minds and tell us we're not worthy, or perhaps we should change our lifestyles or this or that or the other. But it says, I tell you, find the lioness within you to raise up with a sword and slay your demons. So I'm getting pretty good at slaying my demons.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that's great advice. Well, we're going to be winding up the show in a minute, but I wanted to ask you one more question because I think it's critically important, and I've got a daughter that's going to be graduating college pretty soon. What advice would you give for the young ladies who are about to graduate college and about to enter the workforce?
I think it'd be wonderful to have a Grit 101 course of what we're doing on the different colors of pearls in life situation, if it's in the green for your finances, if it's even thinking about relationships of dating, and then on campus of how to interact communications better with your teachers. So that's what we're trying to do, is for her to look and see what's available as an overall plan. And there are plans today that we didn't have when I had 50 years ago in college. And I think there are plans your daughter should take a look. We'll make sure she gets a Women of True Grit book, but there are things that she could look at that could help her make better choices for every area of her life. And that's what we want to do. We don't have all the answers, but we can help you make better choices.
How can people get a copy of your book?
They can go to Amazon, they can go to any bookstore, and Barnes & Noble. We have the ebook if they want the ebook, and they can check that out at ediehand.com. Under books has all the links to it. And I use a lot of the funds that I make to help me be able to go to. Sometimes there's someone that doesn't have money for you to show up to do things, and that helps me to do things for free.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been an incredibly enlightening show, inspirational, and you're a real tribute to the women out there, really trying to help them navigate their way through work life and home life. So we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. It means so much to me to come and to see Art again after so long, and he's looking fine, and y'all are doing a great job. And thank you.
Well, thank you, and thanks for everybody who's watching the attorneys.
Yeah, after saying that, we're going to extend the show. No.
That's right.
Edie, thank you. Again, the book
have me back.
is, in fact, Edie Hand's Women of True Grit. We're giving you information on how you can get a copy of that. Thank her so much for being on the show. And thank you for joining us here on The Attorneys. And make sure you make an appointment to join us again next week, same place, same time. We'll do it again with more good information from Hollis Wright. You have a good one. Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.